What is up, Exiles? It's the Inhuman one here, and today I want to show you guys my new Lightning Spear Primal Strikes Amazon. She does an incredible amount of damage and clearing T15s, T15 map bosses with absolutely no problem whatsoever. This is a work in progress build that can only be improved from here in terms of survivability and damage. Once I get certain currencies, once I am able to anoint an amulet, and things of that nature. But we're going to jump right into the guide. First and foremost, I do want to kind of go over that this particular build is something that I will constantly be changing and experimenting from since I changed over from the bleed build, but the Lightning Amazon is just fantastic, so I can't wait to showcase it for you guys. We're going to be going over a few things and as much, I would say as much detail as possible, but one thing that I do run and that I want to make sure is very evident is that I run a scepter. So I just do that for more spirit because we're going to be slotting in a handful of persistent buffs. So we'll be going into the gear as well in just in due time. But the scepter that I got is kind of low level right now as I am able to get more intelligence. This is actually due for an upgrade right now. We can get a higher level scepter. Malice is pretty nice because it does give us that critical weakness. Remember, I have winter last season for the monks and all that mess. That was a fantastic thing to have, but critical weakness is based off of your proximity to the enemies. So if you're able to get in close, you can do even more critical damage, so it's fantastic. The higher level, of course, it's going to have even better effects. So really nice stuff there. I just have simple stuff like cannibalism and herbalism just for the sake of constantly getting these buffs, so you can get some max life recovered on kill and then 30% increased recovery. Those aren't necessarily the best for that particular slot. You really want to try and focus increasing your, the radius or your presence aura, if you will. But nothing too crazy about that. It's really a small radius. You do have to get in pretty close regardless. So it's like 2 meters, which you're pretty much kissing distance to them. But in regards to the primary attacks here, we are focusing on Primal Strikes up close and Lightning Spear from afar. So anything that, of course, is off in the distance, we're going to be clearing screens really nice and easy. I will be showcasing some footage of that and how easily it works and how nice it looks, just clearing screens and multiple screens. Enemies so far off screen that you will literally be walking and they're like, where are all the enemies? You'll just be picking up loot. So really nice. Any enemies that get in close, you can always resort to Primal Strikes. And if they're already shocked, you can deal massive amounts of damage. This is an incredibly underrated skill and honestly what I use primarily for bossing. So Lightning Spear, you do want to increase the level and quality as much as you can. This would be kind of a high priority kind of skill to upgrade. And in it, we have a few things that are going to make it really beefy. First and foremost is Volt. This is kind of like gaining static electricity, and you get voltaic charges every time you travel every 1 meter. So once you get up to 30 max voltaic charges, you can do even more damage and your skills will chain, so it's really nice. Conduction is just to allow us to get a little bit more chance to shock, because if we get shock charges, we'll be creating frenzy charges, which is something that we'll be talking about here in a little bit. Or actually, it's more so electrocution, but shock is just good for additional damage. Fork is going to be good. So the projectiles from Lightning Spear cannot fork. However, there is a secondary part of this, that the lightning bolts, if you see here, that can fork. So, here. So they will be able to do incredible amounts of damage across the screen. And again, I'll be showcasing what that looks like here in just a moment. We also have Primal Armament for increased damage. So one thing that I would probably have on Lightning Spear is most likely Perpetual Charge in the 5th slot. That will allow us to not consume a charge. I think 25-30% chance. Not bad. Primal Strikes is our damage dealer up close. This does incredible amounts of damage, but it is a bit slow and the reach isn't as good as you would like. So you do want to have anything that's going to enhance those two properties. So of course you're going to have, you'd be looking at things like Martial Tempo and all that. But let's take a look. We have Conk Effect, so Concentrated Effect for the increased 30% more damage. Now we don't really care about the area of effect because it's going to be covering a large amount, especially if the enemy is shocked. But you just want to be focusing on the one target right in front of you. Elemental Focus does even more damage, which is fantastic. And then we have Martial Tempo for attack speed. Storm Lance is solid if you're trying to get enemies to get shocked, so you can throw these down usually around a boss if they're just coming out doing their introductory phase, or if there's enemies kind of rushing you and just group together, you can throw down a Storm Lance and then Lightning Spear them and they'll just blow up. In the event that you're bossing, you want to throw the Storm Lance down and then switch to Primal Strikes, and once they're shocked, you go ahead and just completely melt them. I'll be showcasing that as well. So for Storm Lance, we want just damage, so Deliberation for 20% more damage, even though it has have a 30% movement speed penalty. Scatter Shot for just more rods, and then of course Lightning Infusion for the lightning damage. Herald of Thunder, this is where we kind of get the charges, and there's a few ways to get charges on this particular build. So if you didn't want to run Scepter, you could run a Buckler and parry. That's one way to get a charge. You could pin enemies with the Bushwhack Boots to unique, and that would be one other way to gain a charge. Or you can of course gain charges by, I think, electrocuting enemies. So we'll be going over that in just a moment. So here, this is interesting because it's a Herald skill, but Innervate is going to give us some increased damage. This right here, Electrocute, is interesting because remember, the Heralds can't actually inflict ailments or damaging ailments, right? So Shock would be one. But lightning damage contributes to electrocution buildup. So I do believe, and this honestly works because I don't have any other mechanism used for charging or generating charges right now, other than the few that I mentioned that I used in the past. But this is generating charges for us. So right here we have the Electrocute, which is giving us the electrocution buildup, and then Neural Overload, which is pretty much giving us, further damage. So you do generate charges this way. I don't know if it's a bugged interaction or not, but it works fantastic. So that is something that if it is nerfed, just remember there's plenty of other ways to get charges with pin, or of course with the parry if you want to change out the Scepter because you don't feel like you have enough defense. But honestly, you're gonna be just fine. Barrage is really nice. So in the event that you do have a charge that you can use, or a spare charge, you can use this for incredible single target damage or just completely clearing maps. This does even better damage against enemies that are grouped together. So it's just going to be an incredibly powerful skill that allows you to repeat your attack 2 times. So you'd essentially be throwing 3 lightning spears at once. A really, really good skill. So Inhibitor is really nice for it because it has a chance to not consume charges, and also deal 4% more damage per type of charge on you, so you get additional damage. Skills empowered by supported skills have Calling Strike with Murderous Intent, so this is fantastic. If this is something that you want to do on like a rare or potentially a boss, you can definitely do that. This would really only be for like beefy rares. Most rares are going to be dying in one hit with your Lightning Spear or Primal Strikes, so you'll be one-shotting just about everything. The things that you don't, make sure that you throw down your Storm Lance, and then if you're at range, you can use Lightning Spear. If you're up close, you resort to your Primal Strikes. Premeditation is fantastic because any empowered skills, which would be either your Lightning Spear or your Storm Lance in this instance, you could deal 15% more damage. So as long it would take a charge, of course. Combat Frenzy is really like the meat and potatoes of this build. It is incredibly important that you have this slotted, and of course that you are generating charges as frequently as possible. So whatever method that you choose, make sure that you're comfortable with it, and then you can consistently and reliably generate charges so that you're constantly dealing maximum amounts of damage. So Combat Frenzy, as you know, does create frenzy charges when you freeze, electrocute, or pin an enemy. So this is interesting, and this is something that you do want to, of course, focus on increasing the gem quality of, so that you can reduce the cooldown and get the charges a little bit faster. So remember, freeze, electrocute, or pin. So in our instance, it's going to be either electrocute or pin. Pin is going to be great if you have the Bushwhack unique boots. I use those for a period of time, but it's really not necessary. And then you have electrocute, which we are getting from the Herald of Thunder. So really, really nice there. We have precision slotted in here for increased accuracy rating, which I am going to be going over. And then, of course, we have profusion, which gives us a 50% chance to get an additional charge. Sniper's Mark is kind of something that you can do when you're first beginning your mapping. So when you're mapping, typically your very first Lightning Spear is of course not going to be charged because you've not hit anything yet, so you're not going to have any frenzy charges. So what you can do is, as you're running towards the mob, you can apply Sniper's Mark. This will mark a target, a single target, and once you destroy an enemy or the critical hit, you will actually generate a frenzy charge. So the next critical hit the target receives consumes the mark, deal extra damage, and grants you a frenzy charge. This is another way to get a frenzy charge. So we have now 3 different ways that you're able to get charges and generate charges for the ability to increase your storm lances, any of your lances, and of course your lightning spear. So really good skill as well. Not something that you need very often, but if you're just having trouble generating a charge, it's a fantastic way to do it. Single out is really good for this because it's going to break armor. It's something that I feel is very strong and noticeable. Armored enemies can sometimes be a bit more tanky, and they might take 2 hits as opposed to the 1, but as you're breaking the armor, you're going to notice that if you do this for a single target, specifically like tanky or beefy rares and of course bosses, right as they're kind of vulnerable and after their introductory phase, you're going to see that you're getting some massive damage here. Mobility is good because you can reduce the movement speed penalty. It is a little slow whenever you're casting Mark, but there's a few ways around that. One of which could be if you just feel like it, you can ride a Roa, but honestly, the skills that we have slotted in here are going to be good for survivability and of course damage. And then we have persistence. So supported skills have 40% more skill effect duration, so the mark will be lasting longer. For the persistent buffs or spirit skills, we do have Wind Dancer. Pretty much, it's just going to be the new Grim Feast. Everybody that has any kind of evasion type build should always run Wind Dancer, even if you're an evasion hybrid, because it just gives you multiple stacks of multiple stages and stacks of evasion. So what happens is you can get up to 3 stacks. At 20% quality, you can go to 4 stacks, and it just increases your evasion like crazy. Anytime you get hit, enemies will kind of be pushed back or stunned. Knockback is the actual innate and built-in effect. However, if you add blind and maim, this is going to pretty much prevent any enemies from getting in close to you. So if you get hit with a melee strike, all of your stacks will go away, but you're going to blind and maim the enemies, and it actually does a pretty decent amount of damage as well. Wind Wave is really nice because if you get stunned by any chance, you can push them back as well. So a lot of times if you get hit the single time, you're going to be okay, but if you get hit subsequent times, you might get stunned, and if you've been kind of dodging through packs, you might actually get stunned, and when Wind Dancer procs, you're going to be safe, so really good. And then we have Trinity for some additional damage. This is an incredibly costly spirit skill with 100% 100 reservation or 100 spirit required, but it's actually really solid because we're going to be focusing on a lot of damage dealing and then energy shield for survivability on our gear. So I honestly prefer going full damage as much as we can, and then of course some survivability. Right now, defenses in Path of Exile 2 Endgame specifically are quite noticeably imbalanced, I would say, but I would say that it's still okay and viable because I'm running T15s and destroying map bosses as well quite easily in seconds, and I would say that the best route to go for the Huntress in particular is not armor evasion, but currently it's evasion energy shield. I did experiment with armor evasion, pure armor, pure evasion, but as we know and as we've learned in the last season, evasion as the single line of defense is just simply not enough. It's an excellent secondary defense when paired with energy shield, but still armor and evasion is just not necessarily as strong or noticeable because you can't get the health pool that you need to be able to tank the stronger abilities, AoE strikes, and things of that nature. So instead we go in lieu of defense, we're going to go more damage, of course. And one thing that we can talk about a little bit more after Trinity is some more survivability if you guys are having trouble and not able to gear up. So Trinity is excellent because you get 9% more elemental damage with attacks per 50 resonance. So you get 100 resonance, and it's like a little bar. It's like a little circular bar. It's got 3 sections: a blue, a red section, and whatever else. And the blue, of course, stands for the electricity. So considering we're doing tons of lightning and electrocution type damage, we will be doing all kinds more damage. So 9% more per 50 resonance up to 100 resonance. So you're going to get about 18% more. And as you quality this up, you can get to 20% more damage just by running around and killing things with lightning, which is what you're going to be doing anyway. So this is just pretty much a constant, persistent increase of damage up to 18% and then 20% at the highest level. So a fantastic way to get more damage. Because I had some extra spirit to use, I went ahead and slotted with everything I could. I was out, so I only have 5 spirit left. So now I just threw in lightning mastery to increase the level of any lightning skills. So I'll probably be moving this around, but honestly, the biggest room for improvement is, of course, getting the greater jeweler's orbs, which are quite rare and quite difficult to find. The priority and what you would want to focus on is, of course, your lightning spear, your primal strikes, and then your storm lance. In regards to your herald of thunder, you just want to make sure at any cost, you definitely need to have the electrocute and neural overload at the very least, and then innervate a little bit later. If for whatever reason you're struggling with survivability, you can swap out barrage with maybe ghost dance, because we will start having a lot more energy shield, so you can get your energy shield back upon getting hit, similar to like with wind dance or wind dancer. So if you have those 2 lines of defense, wind dancer plus ghost dance, you're going to be in really good shape. So in the event that you're struggling with survivability, if not, then it's always nice to have these offensive capabilities so that you can switch them around. Sniper's Mark is another one that, if you're just constantly and reliably generating charges, you could always swap that out as well. But I like to have it just in the event that I'm fighting a really beefy rare, or just to kind of prep for bosses if needed. But that's the overall kind of loadout there for the skills. In regards to the gear, we do have currently like a high fizz damage spear. It's really important to focus on the fizz damage, any additional damage, and of course the accuracy. At this point in time, I don't have my 3rd ascendancy, which we'll be talking about in due time, but eventually once you get to the Amazon and you get several points, you're going to want to focus on accuracy spears. So the highest accuracy is going to be the most important skill you can possibly have, because not only does it give you damage, but it also gives you increased crit chance. So this spear will be swapped out, but this is a pretty fantastic spear as it is, and it's doing all kinds of damage, but we can actually swap it out once our build, and we get the ascendancy points for the accuracy, because we'll be gearing towards that instead. And we have tons of nodes that we're doing to even amplify that further. So really good stuff there. For the, let's see, we can start with some of this gear here. So the gloves, really what you want to focus on is, of course, resistances, but if you can add any additional lightning damage and crit damage bonus, then you're going to be fantastic. If you get the ability to leech any kind of damage as either life or mana, it's golden, so be sure to keep those if you can. For belts, this is a decent belt. The only thing is it's lacking charm slots, so you want to have as many charm slots as possible, resistances, and then max life. Max life is going to be huge. Utility belts are going to be ideal because they do apply 20% of the flash recovery instantly, so really good in a tight spot. For shoes, you want to go movement speed, so max movement speed, 25 to 30% is going to feel really good in endgame. And of course, you want to go evasion energy shield hybrid, so we are going to go for resistances and then anything else that we're needing. Max life, max mana, anything like that. Same goes for these, right? Evasion energy shield hybrid. And then of course, once you're happy with that, you can, and you feel like this is your forever piece, you can increase the quality and get those numbers even juicier. In regards to the chest piece, we have the sleek jacket, which is evasion, energy shield, really high evasion, really good hybrid piece of armor you can wear. Always want to focus on resistances, of course. Max anything, attributes, max life, anything like that's going to be just great. I didn't get too many good stats on this, but I did need it just for the energy shield and evasion. Didn't really need many resistances at this point, so I just went ahead and applied what I was lacking. So no problem there. And then for energy, for the helmet, you want to go pure energy shield if possible. There's several nodes you can take to amplify this even further. But if you want, if say for example, you still want to kind of, you're lacking any evasion or your energy shield's good, you can do a hybrid as well. There's plenty of hybrid energy shield evasion helmets out there, but I just go pure energy shield for that big boost. And of course here I'm going to go for as many attributes as possible, max life and resistances. In regards to the rings, your rings are actually pretty interesting because this is a build that does require a decent amount of attributes, and Dawn of the Hunt as it is makes it quite difficult to stack attributes. You're going to want to find them anywhere you can, so rings are a great spot to find attributes as well as max life and increased damage and application of kind of elemental damage to your attacks. So really good stuff there. So always focus on resistances, attributes, and increased damage anywhere you can find it. The same goes for this ring here, so we just have a little bit more lightning damage added to attacks, elemental resistances, and we get a little bit of life per enemy killed, which is great. And then we have an amulet. The amulet, of course, is doing the same thing as the rings. It's giving us max life, attributes, and of course resistances, so really good thing to have there. One thing that I would say is if you're going to anoint anything on this particular build, I would suggest Storm Charged, which we'll go over in just one moment. And then for the scepter, like I said, this is long overdue for an upgrade, but you do want to have as much spirit as possible, so at least 135 or 130 spirit minimum, as well as anything, whether it be attributes or resistances. So say for example, you're fine on spirit and you're not fine on spirit, you're fine on damage and attributes. You could go resistances, so there's purity of ice and purity of other elements that give you resistances based on that corresponding element. So that's a great way to get resistances on the scepter. I'm looking for a good socketable for the scepter. So honestly, anything that's going to increase damage, or in the event that you need resistances, or if it's going to apply a specific effect, is all good. So anything that you could suggest in the comments, please feel free to let me know if you guys have found any good socketables there. Honestly, I have not done the research. If it hasn't dropped for me, I have not gone out and found anything on the database, but it's something that would be something to consider, because now scepters do have the ability to be socketed. So what do you suggest to go in this slot? In regards to your mana and whatever, you just want the max numbers. You want big numbers. We have the utility belt, so we're going to be able to get that health instantly. So big numbers on that. And then once you're happy, you can go ahead and get the quality up. This just happened to drop at a superior quality, so really nice. When I talked about the anointment, the most important one to anoint here is Storm Charged, which does 40% increased elemental damage if you've dealt a critical hit recently, which we're going to be doing very often, and then 20% increased critical hit chance. We're going to be going crazy on the crit, so this is something that we're going to show in the passive tree. So that's what I would anoint. In regards to the ascendancy, you do want to pick the Amazon class, and first and foremost, you do want to pick up these two nodes right here as your very first ascendancy, which is Predatory Instinct. This is going to give you the ability to deal massive chunks of damage on any rare and unique enemies. So this is just so good to have early on. You will feel a major lift there. In regards to the next few points, you want to go pure accuracy. So you want to go here for the accuracy, crit strike. This is going to gain additional critical hit chance equal to 25% of excess chance to hit with attack. So this is fantastic. It can now exceed, your crit chance can exceed 100%. And then you're going to want to go here for the third ascendancy, which is going to give you penetrate. This is huge because attacks using your weapons have added physical damage equal to 25% of the accuracy rating on the weapon. So accuracy becomes one of the most valuable skills on a spear, and I'll show you guys a good example of a spear you'd want to use. So a good example of a spear you would want to have is going to be something that's going to have crazy amounts of accuracy. So right here, this would probably do nuts amounts of damage. So 542 accuracy, 25% of that is a nice chunk on top of everything else we're dealing. That's going to be disgusting. Critical damage bonus, any additional damage added, attributes, not the best on a weapon, but anything that can deal damage is going to be beautiful. So that would be an example of what you'd want to see. In regards to the remaining kind of nodes in the tree, you want to go pure attack damage as much as possible. If you're struggling with survivability, you can pick up some evasion nodes, and which are going to be on this side. But I go pure damage because if you kill anything before it kills you or hits you, then you're probably going to survive, right? So here we go for these nodes, and we pick up some strength along the way. We're getting attack damage and increased elemental damage as well. We're picking up all these crit nodes because why not? Cooked is pretty solid. You do get reduced global defenses, but you get a massive chunk of critical damage bonus. So if say for example you're struggling with defenses, then you can remove that because you can have plenty of crit elsewhere. Here we have a big evasion node and movement speed, a jewel socket. So unfortunately I don't have any good jewel sockets right now because I was kind of focused more on a build that was focused on bleed. So spear field and hazards were the case, but you're going to want to go increased elemental damage, damage with spears, attack speed, things of that nature, not necessarily hazard damage. So here you pick up whatever nodes you need for your attributes. And then you're going to want to grab everything in here so you can get increased attack speed per accuracy. This will give you increased attack rating and crit hit chance and accuracy. You need all of that. You're going to pick up all these spear nodes and eventually even this one, which is 10% increased accuracy rating with spears. So that'll further enhance your damage. Come up to this area here and we're going to grab these herald nodes so we can get 50% increased lightning damage while affected by the Herald of Thunder, which will be happening very commonly. And then we're going to go for all these crit nodes here. This one right here is probably one of the best in the entire game, with attacks having plus 1% to crit hit chance. And then we can go ahead and grab some evasion for survivability and some attributes, so tons of decks here. We can grab this jewel node and keep working our way up. Grab the rest of these critical hit nodes here. And then these are going to be very important for the lightning damage. We get all kinds of increased lightning damage, plus we get the ability to penetrate lightning damage, so this is going to be fantastic. Also synergizes with lightning exposure. Come up here and we're going to grab some of these defensive nodes to increase our energy shield and evasion. And then we're going to come this way, grab our last jewel socket, and then work our way towards grabbing these crit damage nodes. You do want to grab these in particular because they give you not only attributes but also major crit hit chance and the crit damage bonuses, so really love those. We'll be going to this one next. Once we're done with that, we can go and try and find some more survivability elsewhere, and even maybe in these nodes if we need to, but we won't have much left because leveling is quite difficult, as you know, in the end game. Pretty much beyond 93, 90, 92, 93, it's going to slow down considerably. So here, this is to kind of look at the max life, shield, mana, spirit, and resistances we have. We do have tons of spirit, but honestly, you're getting that from the scepter, so you're gonna have any issues with that at all. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this build. I did want to go ahead and showcase something to you guys. You're gonna see two clips of just boss battles where I alternate between kind of a ranged approach and also just throwing down the what are they called, the storm lances, and then just going crazy with primal strikes. And then you're also going to see just me clearing a crypt map as quickly as possible. Just little highlights for your enjoyment and for your viewing pleasure, just to see exactly how well these builds work. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you all so much for being the best part of my channel. Thank you so much for the support. If you want this build written up on max roll, please get this video up to 13 likes, and I'll start doing that on every video on a go for it. I haven't done any build guides yet, mostly other types of instructional videos, but if you want more build guides, let's get this to 13 likes. I'll put this up on max roll, and every other build guide I do will always be on max roll from this point forward. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you all so much again, and until next time, it's the Inhuman One signing out.